Abyss is the artificial intelligence voice of Bill Maher narrating this pod-slice summary of the Club Random podcast. The main focus of this segment of the Club Random podcast revolves around Bill Maher and Nicole Avant's discussion about changes in society befriending victims, parenting styles, and societal norms. Avant starts the conversation recollecting her experience while growing up. She noted that she enjoyed writing and had been intending to pen down several topics close to her heart. The book she brings to Bill Maher is an outcome of her transition into serious writing. The conversation takes a deep, personal turn when Avant recalls the murder of her 81-year-old mother around Christmas time 2 years prior. She criticizes the silent culture surrounding burglary and crime in affluent neighborhoods, stressing the necessity to inform and protect one another within the community. The dialogue transitions into Avant expressing her belief in the power of choice. She emphatically states that people can choose to be victims or survivors and highlights the power of consciousness in making that choice. Back this topic, they discussed a humorous anecdote about a woman pulled over by a police officer, repeatedly invoking victim categories. The discussion shifts in parenting styles and societal norms. The duo criticizes the trend of reversing authority hierarchy between parents and children, pointing out the negative impacts of this approach on the children and the society at large. They lament the loss of basic manners and question how society could function effectively if decent human behavior is disregarded. Drawing on personal experiences to back their argument, Avant recounts an incident from her childhood where her mother disciplined her for attempting to steal candy, marking it as a turning point in her life that ensured she never embarked on the wrong path again. Bill Maher, backing Avant's point, quotes an example from the TV show Mad Men, where a neighbor disciplines a child during a barbecue without the parents intervening. He highlights how the societal norm of every adult being responsible for disciplining a child has changed over the years. Towards the end of the conversation, they delve deeper into societal changes and evolving practices, adhering to the theme of their discussion on changing societal norms, parenting styles, and personal behaviors. As the conversation progresses within this segment of the Club Random podcast, Bill Maher and Nicole Avant delve deeper into the polarizing facets of political affiliation and the often confrontational nature of bipartisan discourse. A focal point of their dialogue is the viewer's reactions to having political figures from contrasting factions on the show, underscoring the increasing intolerance towards differing political opinions. Over how this general unwillingness to communicate breeds hostility and further divides society, and how this regression is fed by the U.S. versus them mentality. Two instances distinctly encapsulate this discussion. Nicole Avant discusses an incident where she intervened upon witnessing a man harassing an elderly woman and was later admonished because the man was unhoused. She criticizes people's inclination to prioritize political correctness over moral correctness. Maher similarly points out the absurdity and hypocrisy of the current societal climate as he navigates the controversial topic of the Israel-Hamas conflict, suggesting that people often box others into oppressor and victim categories based on superficial understandings. Over the course of the conversation, they also touch upon societal progress and the lack of recognition of the same. Avant shares an impactful story of her father who had lived through the brutality of the Ku Klux Klan era. Was bewilderment at the current generation's claim. No progress underscores her argument about appreciating previous generations' fights for rights and freedoms. And Avant's dialogue reinforces the idea that progress should not be overlooked, a sentiment further accentuated by recalling societal norms from the 1960s where something as innocent as a cheek peck was a scandal. In addition, this segment has an extensive conversation around the minorities' representation and overrepresentation in media, specifically advertising. And Avant discuss how commercials frequently feature people of color and interracial couples, presenting a marked contrast to past exclusion of minorities. Despite the intensity of their topics, The conversation is occasionally peppered with lighter moments and endorsements. Though Maher satirizes his endorsement of xybiotics and Dr. Ouch, he effectively maintains the conversation's fluidity, successfully integrating their promotions without disrupting the dialogue's flow. There are insightful moments focused on memory and representation throughout this part of the transcript. Nicole Avant shares a telling anecdote about her dad rewatching the classic show The Jeffersons. She remarks how some younger viewers cannot separate the bigotry of the character, Archie Bunker, from the actor playing him, Carol O'Connor, indicating a shift in societal understanding. I proceed to discuss other classic films, like Birth of a Nation and Just Who's Coming to Dinner, emphasizing the importance of viewing these movies to understand American history and societal progression. My conversation then turns towards the perception of progress within society. Maher and Avant agree on the significance of acknowledging societal growth instead of continuously emphasizing its shortcomings. This discussion gravitates towards personal anecdotes, with remarks on relationships with friends whose political beliefs do not entirely align with their own. These stories underline the theme of mutual respect and dialogue, irrespective of differing viewpoints. Your talking point in this section is the idea of liberal privilege and its impact on societal understanding. The hosts observe that some liberals tend to become impractical and fantastical with no consequences due to their privilege. They argue that such behavior distances them from real-world issues and contributes to a lack of genuine empathy and connection. A powerfully illustrative anecdote provided by Avant involves her encounter with white youths protesting for a Black Lives Matters but ignoring her, a black woman in person. The discussion speculates that some participants in progressive movements may be more interested in being a part of a cause rather than understanding the complexities of these issues. This, they suggest, leads to a very surface-level understanding and engagement, oftentimes resulting in misrepresentations and misunderstandings. Significant endorsements in this portion include Dr. Squatch, Club Random's partnership with Radioactive Media, and Signal Wire woven seamlessly into the conversation. The endorsements not only provide a momentary break from the intense conversation, but also maintain the overall flow of the podcast, ensuring that the listener's attention is not disrupted. This section of the transcript delves deep into socio-cultural issues, touching on societal values, the role of education, and the importance of discipline. The hosts share anecdotes that revolve around ingrained societal behavior. Throughout these exchanges, Nicole Avant makes a valid observation that disrespectful and unruly behavior often stems from a lack of discipline at home. In discussing the impact of online bullying, Nicole vividly narrates an incident involving a school principal and her stepdaughter, Sarah. This bold confrontation reveals Nicole's strong stance against bullying in any form. This narrative serves as a bridge into more intricate societal issues regarding the role of education, discipline, and mutual respect. The conversation, then, extends to the role of educators in shaping the young generation. The hosts express deep respect for teachers, citing personal experiences while affirming the pivotal role they play in society. Highlight what they perceive to be a systemic issue, hinting at the education system's failure to control violence in schools and the poor compensation for teachers. The lateral shift in the dialogue brings forth the idea of political skill and discipline. With Barack Obama serving as an example, the hosts acknowledge the significant challenges he overcame as the first black president. Nicole Avant likens Obama's journey to those of Jackie Robinson and Jesse Owens, sports icons who did not take the bats when provoked with racial discrimination. These analogies reinforce the theme of discipline and resilience in shaping societal destiny. Finally, the hosts postulate that the Democratic Party has a significant influence on education. They suggest that the party should take more ownership of the issues plaguing the education sector, engaging in a narrative that mingles politics with societal progression. Throughout their dialogue, the hosts utilize a conversational and anecdotal discourse style, allowing listeners to follow along with the complex issues discussed easily. This section of the transcript opens with a touching tribute to law enforcement as Nicole Avant draws on personal testimony regarding the incidents surrounding her mother's death. Nicole's gratitude reaches out to the officers who were on the scene promptly and cared for her mother, emphasizing a balanced perspective in interacting with law enforcement, while acknowledging the unfortunate presence of a few bad apples in the police force. Nicole counsels listeners not to paint law enforcement with a broad brush, particularly considering that many officers, like her mother, are people of color. In a frank conversation about societal issues, Nicole and Bill Maher address the impact of social class on the response of emergency services and the lived experiences of different demographic groups. As an example, they refer to the quick response time to her mother's emergency, to her living in Beverly Hills, pointing out how socioeconomic factors can influence access to services. The focus of their discourse then shifts to the concept of generational change, specifically the evolving understanding of racism over the past decades. Maher observes that being racist is now considered on hips by the younger generation, a stark contrast from 30 years ago. He brings in the case of a young police officer treating a non-binary, indigenous woman with respect, exemplifying shifts in societal attitudes. He attributes this to the influence of changing times and cultural developments, indicating that new generations tend to be more accepting and understanding of diversity and inclusivity. This leads into an exploration of the idea that the Democratic Party is fighting the last war, with excessive focus on race rather than class. Nicole and Maher reiterate the notion that battles over socioeconomic disparities are more pivotal in current times than racial issues, arguing that the discourse needs to shift in this direction to tackle current societal woes adequately. The duality of racism and classism segues into a discussion on personal ambition and class mobility, using Nicole's mother as an example of someone who aspired to achieve and create a better life. The conversation then returns to the theme of generational changes, incorporating wider perspectives from history, such as the Gilded Age, the Titanic, and a nod to more recent television productions that portray societal hierarchies and class struggles, emphasizing their relevance to the present day. Through this discourse, Nicole and Maher underscore the importance of understanding history and class dynamics to contextualize current societal changes and challenges better. As this portion of the podcast continues, the conversation between Nicole Avant and Bill Maher takes on more nuanced topics. They talk about societal structures, including the inherent class system of society and how it shapes people's lives. Inevitably, this leads into a comparison of societal structures in the past and present, where characters' societal stations in shows like Gilded Age are contrasted with the present day's freedoms and complexities. I then discuss the duality of appreciating the good aspects of their society while acknowledging its imperfections. They agree that it is impossible to find an absolutely perfect country and insist that every place has its drawbacks. This reflects their assertion that continual striving is intrinsic to the American spirit, prompting a comparison with their lives in Beverly Hills and parts of America's decline, including infrastructural issues. Interestingly, they also touch upon the topic of resilience, showcasing America's perseverance in the face of adversity, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Using the example of a robust economic comeback, Maher and Avant celebrate the determination embedded in the American spirit. They acknowledge that there are challenges, but they remain hopeful, influenced by their unique experiences. This leads into an intimate exploration of Avant's family history. Her father, who had a challenging journey to success, serves as a testament to overcoming adversity. His philosophy, emphasizing resilience and the importance of good friends, plays a significant role in shaping Avant's worldview. She further celebrates friendships that were instrumental in her father's life, highlighting the role played by Jerry Moss, a business partner and friend to her father. Finally, they wrap up this portion of the conversation with a heartening exchange of gratefulness for the opportunity to engage in such a thought-provoking discussion. So they reflect on their personal histories, the importance of companionship, and the firm belief in resilience and continual striving, potentially instilling these values in future generations.